We're starting on the Mishnah, the new parak.
New parak.
Testament Bais. Halakeach behema min ha'ovet kechavim. Someone buys an animal from a non-Jew. Ve'ini yidei bikra im like bikra. He doesn't know if it already had its firstborn or it didn't have its firstborn. And now it has a child. So the child, now you don't know if this is the first one or the second one. Rabbi Shmuel says, we look at the age of the child. Eiz bashnasa, if it's a goat, and she is in her first year, then vaday lakayan. Then this animal that it has by you definitely belongs to the kayan. Because he's assuming that it can't have a child before that. It can only have one child in its first year, and this must be it. Mikan ve'elach safek. However, after the first year, we don't know. Maybe it had a child, maybe not. Rachel bashtayim, a sheep that's 2 years. Then vadei lakayan. That's for sure to the kayan, because within the first 2 years of a sheep, it's not going to have an offspring. So this must be the first one. Mikan ve'elach safek. After that is a safek. Para v'chamar b'nei shalish. A para and a chamar, they have to be 3 years old in order to have their first child. So b'nei shalish vadei lakayan. Mikan ve'elach is safek. After that, it's a safek. Amar loy Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says to Rabbi Shmuel, Ilu bevlad bilvad habehema nifteres kidvarecha. If you need a real child to exempt the next one from being a firstborn, then you would be right, because it's not going to have 2 offspring in the first year. Ella amru siman avlad bebehema dakatina. But you don't really need a full offspring in the first year. The sages have said that, good morning, that if there's some sort of dirty, tinaf means dirt, or something, it gives birth to some sort of, even not a full child, some sort of miscarriage, half a miscarriage. So even if there is this sort of dirt that comes out, I don't know what the word that they're using in the English is.
Fetus? Something?
No, it's not a fetus. Fetus for sure would be. They're using okay, tinaf means a mess, right?
Discharge.
Murky.
A murky
Kind of.
murky discharge. So then that tells me that there really was a child in there. Now, if that's the case, then I don't need a full child beforehand. And so we were so sure that the kayan's going to get the offspring from this animal in the first year. It's not so sure. It's not definite, because could be there was tinuf, and this is already the second child. Ubegasa shilya. In a large animal, this murky discharge isn't enough. It needs to be a placenta that comes out.
Soily.
Soily, okay. Ubeisha shpir v'shilya. And with the woman, it needs to be a shpir, is some sort of embryo, and also a placenta. So in other words, what Rabbi Akiva is responding, so the Kayan doesn't necessarily get this as a Bechor, even though it's within the first year, because it could be that there was some sort of discharge that would have exempted the next animal from being a Bechor. Zeh haklal. So here's the rule. Kol sheyadua shebikra. If you know that it already had a firstborn, say in kan l'kayin klum. The next one the kayin doesn't get. Chol shalai bikra. If it's like saying that you know that it didn't have an animal beforehand, then hareis l'kayin, then this one goes to the kayin. Vim safek. But if it's a doubt, we don't know. So then yechal b'mumei l'baylam. Then the owner eats it with a blemish. Notice it should be a sacrifice. Firstborn animal is a sacrifice. But here we don't know, so we just let it get a blemish. We don't bring it to the temple. The owner can eat it. The shechtze as a regular animal. Okay, the Gemara asks, Mikan ve'elach. In Rabbi Shmuel we mentioned that from the first year and on, it's a doubt. Maybe it already had an offspring before. In other words, we're buying an animal from a non-Jew. We don't trust him what he's going to tell me about, or maybe he's not saying anything. So from after the first year, it could be that it belongs to the Kohen. Gemara asks, am I Suffolk? Why is it a doubt? Maybe it belongs to the Kohen. Halakha charev behemoths. Let's go after the majority of animals. Brave behemoths, misabris v'yoldas b'teich shnasan. V'havadai meilad oilad. Gemara is asking like this. If the animal can have one child in its first year, so then we should say that it definitely did have that child in its first year. If it could mate, then it would have mated, and then if that's the case, then it already had its first child after the first year. We should say it's definitely, take it for granted that it mated already and it had its offspring, and now the next one doesn't go to the Kohen. Why are we saying it's a doubt? We should go after the majority. The majority of animals, that's what they do. The Gemara says, Lema Rabbi Yishmael Rab Meir Svirle. We could answer this by saying that Rabbi Yishmael holds like Rab Meir. Rab Meir has a unique opinion that says that we don't follow the majority. True, if I would follow the majority, I would say that it's not a bechar. This animal here isn't a bechar, because the majority of the animals have mated and given birth within the first year, and this now it's not in its first year, so it must be that it's not a bechar. The majority would be that it's that this is the second animal. So we'll hold like. What we're going to do is we're going to hold like Rabbi Shmuel's going to hold like Rab Meir that says we don't really follow the majority. Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rab Meir the chayesh l'miyuta. Rab Meir suspects for the minority, and there may be an animal that hasn't mated yet, even though it's already up to its first year, and this is the first animal. Could be, so therefore it's a suffix. We're explaining the suffix why it's a doubt after the time that it could have mated and could have had its first offspring. The Gemara says, really, the Gemara doesn't want to say that Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rab Meir, because why should we put Rabbi Shmuel in this minority opinion? The Gemara wants him to hold like the majority. The Gemara says, Afilu tema Rabbanan. It's also Chayim.
The other Chayim.
Really, we can say that this is the opinion of the Rabbanan. And when do the rabbis follow the majority? And we should say that there's not even a doubt if this is a bechar. This is for sure not a bechar because the majority of animals have already mated and given birth. And this animal that's born now after its first year is not a firstborn. Why don't we say that? The rabbis follow the majority. So Kiyazli Basaruba, when did they follow the majority? Baruba the Isa Kaman. That's only a majority that's right in front of us. Isa means there is, Kaman, before us. That means if I have a majority right here, Kagain, for example, Tesha Chanuyas. I have 9 stores selling kosher meat. One sells non-kosher meat. And you find a piece of meat in front of that complex, in front of those shops. You find I say it came from the majority. I have 9 here. The majority is that the majority tells me that it came from the kosher one. It's Sanhedrin, or I have the 71 judges, and I have the majority saying one thing. I follow the majority. All the majority is right here. Aval ruba the lesser. Come on. But when I have a statistic, I don't have a majority right here. I have what happens in the world. You say most animals will mate and give birth in the first year. So layas le'rabbanan basru, but the rabbis don't follow that majority. The statistics. If I don't know, if 1 out of 5 people in the world is Asian, and I have 5 children. Doesn't mean that one of my children is Asian, right? It's not. it's not.
Caucasian.
So the statistic doesn't tell me anything about this animal, right? It doesn't say anything about this. So the rabbis follow the majority when I have a majority right here, but just the statistic to say what happens in the world. So maybe the rabbis don't follow that. And here, I have an animal. I don't know if it gave birth already. It's already 1 year old. So in the world out there, animals have given birth already. So we say this animal will follow the majority. It has not. It's not a bechor because it's already given. We don't say that. We don't see all the animals right here. What's happening, and therefore we have to suspect that maybe it is a bechor and it's a safek. That's what we're saying here. The Gemara says, "V'akatna ketana deruba delesakaman." When it comes to maturity, or puberty, that as we'll see how this works, that's that's a majority. That's excuse me. That's not in front of us. That's a statistic majority. Because the Rabbanan Basaruba, and the rabbis nevertheless follow the majority over there. So they do say that we do follow the statistics. Lessa kaman means that it's a majority that's not in front of us. So, Ditanan, as it was taught in the Mishnah, Kotinu Katana, a child, a young boy and a young girl, like Cholzen v'le miyabnim min. They don't do chalitza and they can't do yibam. Different Reb Meir. That's the words of Reb Meir. Amrulai, the sages said to him, Yafar amet shein cholzen. We agree that you can't do chalitza because ish kasav b'pasha, u'makshinan isha le'ish, and we say it needs to be a man to do chalitza. However, and the girl also needs to be older. However, matamin miyabnin, but why can't they do yibam? Amar lehem katan shem yimtza saris, katan shem timtza eilanis, v'nitza pagim be'erva. You see, the way yibam works is that the brother passed away. He leaves a wife, but there's no children. So that wife is allowed to marry. It's mitzvah to marry the husband's brother. Why? To establish a child to take over the namesake of the brother that passed away. Now, if this brother, not the one that died, if the brother that's alive is not able to have children, he's a eunuch. He can't have children, so then he wouldn't be allowed to marry this sister-in-law because he can't establish the family. He can't establish the child. So, what do we do if the brother is a child and we don't know how he's going to mature? Will he mature into a regular adult, or will he not mature properly and he'll end up being a eunuch? So, I'm sorry?
Yehuda youngest.
Yeah.
He was too young, no?
Right.
Read the mark.
Is that a right?
Maybe. Well, that was the issue. Maybe that's what Yehuda was waiting for. I don't know. So, Rabbi Meir holds that you can't do yibam with a child because even though most children will mature properly, healthy, but there will be a miyut, a minority that won't. So he says we have to suspect that minority. V'Rabbanan. So what do the rabbis say? That say that no, you can do yibam. They say zilba seruba. I'm sorry, you have to read this differently. There's a correction from the Tzin Kadashim. Zilba seroiv ktanim. Right? They say you go back after the majority of the children. And v'roiv ktanim lavsrusim nino. Most children are not eunuchs. And zilba sektanis go after the wife as well. And most young girls, right? Ktanis lav eilanis nino, don't grow up being eilanis. Eilanis is a woman that can't have children. So the Rabbanan say that we follow the statistic. We don't know what's going on here. We're not like studying this family or anything like that. We're looking at the majority of the world. In the majority of the world, most children will mature. That's a statistic that's what's going to come out. So, if that's the case, then the rabbis follow the statistic. Oh, they follow the statistic. Then Rabbi Yishmael that says that after 1 year, the animal is still a suffix. if this is the firstborn or not, why we should follow the statistic. And the statistic is that it already had a child in its first year, and this child now is the second. So it should be not a suffix b'chor, it should be a vadai pashat. Pashat means an animal that's not a b'chor. Elama Rava, so rather Rava says machvarta. It makes sense that Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Meir really. The fact that Rabbi Shmuel says that after the first year it's still a suffix must be that he holds like Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir's chayish l'miyuta. He suspects to the minority of cases the chayish l'miyuta. Ravina says afilu temer rabbanan. We could even say it's the rabbanan. The rabbanan said that you followed the statistics and that messed up our halacha here, because the Rabbi Shmuel's opinion was that after a year after a year it's still a suffix if it's a bechar, and according to the rabbanan it shouldn't be a suffix. We should follow the majority. So kiyas li rabbanan basaruba. When did the rabbi say you follow the majority? Beruba delay tali b'maisa. That's only a majority that doesn't have to do with any action. Avaruba detali b'maisa loy. But here's a majority that the animal had to take action in. Knows it had to mate. You can't say a majority. Most animals would have mated. No, the majority is when do we follow the majority? That's only something that's naturally occurring or something. But to say that it's a majority together with an action of what would happen, of what they would have done, that we don't say. We don't put any number on that, if there's an action involved. Okay. Tana Rabbanan, we have a new Bais here. Eis bas shnasa vade lakayim. If the goat that's giving birth is within its first year, so that animal definitely goes to the kayin. Mikano lahalon, from then and onwards, suffix. It's a doubt. Clearly Rabbi Shmuel's opinion, as we're going to see. Rachel bashtayim, a sheep within its first year. This is exactly what the Mishnah said. Vade lakayin, mikano lahalon suffix. From then and on, it's a doubt. Para bashalish, a cow within its first 3 years. Vade lakayin, if it has a child, it's definitely its first one. Mikano lahalon suffix. Afterwards, it's a suffix. Chamaira kipara. A donkey is just like a cow. Okay. The Mishnah said it the same way. The Mishnah just said para v'chamar b'nais shalis. It's the same thing. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Aimer chamaira basar ba'ashanim. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says that a donkey is not like a cow. A donkey has an extra year that it won't give birth, and so therefore, if it had a child now, when its 4th year, it's still definitely the first child. And so this would be a bechar. So Adkan Divrei Rabbi Shmuel. These are the words of Rabbi Shmuel.
It sounds like that machlokas. We had a page or so back with the generations. First, second, third, fourth generation. If their kid was a bechor. I'm just saying, it sounds very similar the way they come.
It was owned by the Kayan. That was a case that was owned.
I'm just saying it's different, but it's...
Yeah, but here it's talking about age.
Yeah.
This is like a school.
No, there was generation, and here it's...
Right.
So Rabbi Yishmael is accepting Rabbi Yehuda?
Yeah. It was his Rabbi Yehuda's opinion was in Rabbi Shmuel's general opinion. However, Kishinemru Dvarim Lefnei Rabbi Yeshua, when this was said in front of Rabbi Yeshua, Amar Lahan, he said to them, Tzu'u Amrlai, Rabbi Shmuel. They take out the Rabbi, you see that? Tzu'u Amrlai Yishmael.
Oh. Really?
That's what I have over here in this Aleph. To Isa. In the Shaitan. Say, tell Yishmael that he made a mistake. This is what we had in our mission as well. Rabbi Akiva says. Yeah, does that make sense here? Let's see. Yeah, he's younger. At least on the chart, he's younger. Here's Rabbi Shua. Here's Rabbi Shmuel. So Rabbi Akiva is a contemporary. Rabbi Shua is older. So, Il Bilvad Habehim Nefteres Hayakid Varecha. If you need a full child, then you would be correct. Because you can only have one child in the first year, and in the second year, whichever animal we're dealing with. However, you have to add in the words, Aval Amru, Siman Avlad Bebehema Dakatina, for Begasa Shilya Bisha Shpir Vashilya. However, the sages have said that there are other ways of seeing if there was a child, and that is whether there's a, what was the word? If there was a soiling, or if there was a placenta, or in a woman, if there was an embryo and a placenta, we say that that's also considered a birth. So to have a full child, Rabbi Shmuel, you'd be correct. You're not going to have a second child within the first year. But to have a miscarriage and a child, then that's possible. So it could be there was a miscarriage before which exempted this child from Bechar, and it's not definitely a Bechar. Vani, let's see how to read this. We have all of these notes here. Vani, Eini Yomi. I don't say so. This is Rabbi Yeshua saying his own opinion. That Ela Eid Shetinfa Bas Shisha, I hold that if a goat soiled, had this soiling, and within the first 6 months, so then Yeled is Petech Shnasa, then she can have another child within the year. Rachel Shetinfa Bas Shnasa Yeled is Petech Shtayim. If a sheep had this soiling in the first year, then she can have another child within the second year. You have to see what Rabbi Shmuel is saying different here, because it sounds very much that there could be a soiling, and this next child is not a bechar. It's the same thing that he said in the name of his teachers. You have to get that. Amar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, "Ani loy basi lidei midazu." I don't have this rule. Ela kol sheyadua shebikra. Ein kan l'kayin klum. If you know that there was already a firstborn, the kayin doesn't get anything. Chol shaloi bikra. And if there was no firstborn, so then harei zu l'kayin, then it does go to the kayin. Safik yechal b'mumay l'bailam. If it's a doubt, then with Rabbi Akiva you need clarity. If you don't have clarity, then it's all a doubt, and then it's eaten by the owner after it gets a blemish. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to go through the different opinions here. What was the argument between Rabbi Shmuel, who said that it depends on its age, and Rabbi Yeshua, that said that, well, actually here we're starting off with the teachers of Rabbi Yeshua, that Rabbi Yeshua is quoting. They said Avalamar, but they said that it could have a soiling. Lema betinaf paita kamiflagi. Maybe the machlekes is about, would the soiling exempt the next child from being a bechar? Maybe a soiling isn't the firstborn. Rabbi Shmuel savar tinaf ein a paita. Very good pshat. Rabbi Shmuel holds that it could have a soiling and then a child, but the soiling doesn't exempt because it wasn't a child. I need a firstborn. This wasn't a firstborn. This is some other thing. It was an early miscarriage. Doesn't count.
What does it mean an early miscarriage?
Let's say the animal has a miscarriage. A very young animal has a miscarriage, and then it has another child.
Right.
Is that child considered a firstborn? Now, if it would have been a full-term miscarriage, then we would say the child isn't a firstborn.
Right.
But here we're saying that it was tinuf, it was just a soiling. We're saying, but that was already an embryo and something. So,
First trimester.
right.
So that's different from the Mishnah.
Well, in Rabbi Shmuel in the Mishnah says that anything in the first year, it has to be the first child. But Rabbi Akiva tells him that you would only be correct if it would be a full child. But it could be that it was tinuf. So what does Rabbi Shmuel hold? Rabbi Shmuel holds that tinuf doesn't matter. That these early miscarriages don't take it away from being firstborn.
And Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yeshua saying the same thing? Or not?
We have to see in the Gemara. The Gemara is going to say what's
They
the difference.
sound the
Rabbi? They
same.
sound the same.
Because it doesn't create a peter rechem. That's why.
In an early miscarriage
Yeah.
doesn't open the womb. It could come out without
because
an opening.
There's
Because
hardly
it's
anything
liquid.
there. It's like needle.
Interesting. And Rabbi Shua savar tinaf paiter. Rabbi Shua holds that no, tinaf exempts the next child. The Gemara says like this. 1 second. Ide chazin and the tinuf. If we see that the tanif, it's supposed to be, if we see that it had soiling, it was soiled. So the kuli alma like pligi the tinuf paiter. No, actually, everyone would hold that it would be exempt. V'hacha b'choishin l'tinuf kamifligi. Do we suspect that there was tinuf, that it had this miscarriage? That's the question here. Rabbi Yishmael savar ein choishin l'tinuf. Rabbi Yishmael holds we don't suspect that there was soiling, and therefore, what are you coming up with this case that there could be, there was a soiling, and therefore you're going to be exempt from b'chayra? We don't suspect to that there was a miscarriage. It's a regular animal here. You bought a regular animal. It had a child. We assume that this was the first child because it's so young. Rabbi Shua holds no. We're going to suspect to those cases, and therefore it's not going to be a real b'char. That could be the machlekes. The Gemara says
the right animals don't do this. Most animals don't do this.
Right, most animals don't. So the Gemara now says V'lei chayesh. Rabbi Yishmael is not going to suspect the tinuf. V'amar Rava, we just learned earlier today, the top of this page, that Rava said, Machvarta Rabbi Yishmael k'Rab Meir Svirale, the chayesh l'miyuta. We were talking about after the first year, where Rabbi Yishmael said that after the first year it's a doubt if it's a firstborn. He said, why should it be a doubt? It's definitely not a firstborn. It for sure had an animal, had an offspring in the first year.
Most animals
Because most animals will mate and have an offspring in the first year. So why does Rabbi Yishmael say it's possibly a firstborn in the second year after the first? So he said because he suspects lemiyuta. He's chayish lemiyuta. It means he suspects that maybe that we're not going to follow the majority here. So now we're saying that Rabbi Yishmael in the first year, he doesn't suspect that there was tinuf, that there was soiling. Why not? You say Rabbi Yishmael is chayish lemiyuta. He follows Rabbi Meir's opinion that you don't follow the majority. So we should say that in the first year, it's not necessarily a bechar. There's one slight difference between this, as the Gemara is going to point out, where it says ki chayesh. When does Rabbi Yishmael suspect to the minority? That's l'chumra. That's after the first year, where we suspect that maybe it didn't mate and have offspring within the first year. So I say maybe the second year the animal is also a bechar, in doubt. I'm chayesh l'miyuta l'chumra. What are we going to do now? In the first year, we're going to say that it's not a bechar because maybe there was tinuf. L'kula lechayesh. To be lenient, he doesn't suspect for the minority. He only suspects the minority to be strict, which that would be after the first year. Within the first year, to say that it already had some sort of offspring, some sort of early miscarriage, which that's a minority of occurrences. So that we're not going to say because that would be a leniency. Iba Yisema, if you want, you could say Bein l'kula, bein l'chomer chayesh, that actually he suspects to the minority whether for leniency or for stringency. V'hacham b'metanefes v'chizeres v'yiledus b'teich shnasa k'miflagi. Here's a little bit of an issue, because after a miscarriage, will it conceive right away? Will it mate again right after a miscarriage, or does it need time to recover? So, the Rabbi Yishmael savar metanefes ein chizeres v'yiledus b'teich shnasa. Rabbi Yishmael holds that that this animal is not going to get a miscarriage plus a full birth within the same year. Its first year. This is its second pregnancy with a full child in the first year. The fact that it's having now a full child means that it really had no miscarriage before, or else it wouldn't have given birth to a full child so fast. It must be that there was no tinuf beforehand. Rabbi Shua says metanefes v'chezeres v'yiledus b'teich shnasa. Shua holds no, it can give birth and have that miscarriage all within the first year. There's a lot going on in this young animal's life. Okay, that was the opinion that Rabbi Yeshua quoted. He said that you should tell Rabbi Yishmael that this is what they said. But then Rabbi Yeshua goes on and he says, "Vani eni emerkein, ela eshetin for bas shisha yiledus teich shnasa." I say, he says, that a goat that that had the soiling within the first 6 months will have a child in the first year. Or Rachel Shetinfa Bas Shnasa, a sheep that has a soiling within the first year, Yiledes B'Teich Shnayim will give birth within the second year. Ma'ika ben Gamri L'Svari. What's the difference between the teaching that Rabbi Yeshua taught in the name of his teachers to the teaching that he's saying in his own name? He says, but I say differently. What's the difference? It sounds like he's saying exactly the same thing. So the Gemara answers, Shetinfa B'Teich Shisha V'ika Beinayo Deziri. There must be a correction there in that Dalet. Kugain. You have to add in the word Kugain. Kugain. The difference would be in a case when it's soiled at the end of 6 months, and the difference is regarding what Ziri says. Damar Ziri, Ein Tinaf Pachas Mishleishim Yom. Ziri says that a miscarriage would take 1 month for the animal to mate again. So if it had 6 months, when it's 6 months old, it has this miscarriage. The 6 months is going to last until the 7th month, because it's not going to mate again. So ligamre islay de according to the teaching that he taught. So he holds of zeiri.
And it needs 5 months to gestate. So we'll
Right.
have enough time.
It takes 5 months. That we learned before on Daf Ches, right? It takes 5 months for a small animal to have for the gestation, for the pregnancy. So
8 months, it's not going to have enough time.
So it's 7. It's up to its 7th month.
Right.
7th month, then it conceives again. At the beginning of the 8th month, it conceives again. It's not going to be able to give birth before the 12th month. So the year's going to be up. So, who holds what over here? Ligamre islay dezeiri, lesvare leslay dezeiri. This is what we're saying. According to himself, he doesn't hold of ziri.
Wait, hold on, back up. If he had it within the first year, 6 months, and then it has to only wait 30 days,
Right.
and then its gestation was 5 months, it made it within the first year. That brings it to a year.
Yeah, but
6 plus 1 plus 5.
that would be exactly the year.
Yeah.
But I think we're worried about that one day that it's going to be after the year.
Shakes faker?
No, it's that one day that
It's the end of 6 months.
it's the end of 6
It was
months.
30 days. It's the end of 7 months.
And now give 5
And now
months.
it can only mate